Announced on the eve of Gamescom, Need for Speed Heat is the latest game in the venerable arcade racing series, but you have to wonder, given the series' track record, will this be one of the good ones? We got to go hands-on with the game at the show and also chat to Ghost Games about how they're trying to take this in a new direction, so here's 7 ways that Need for Speed Heat is hoping to raise the temperature. Number 1. Night and day. There is a real night and day difference between Need for Speed Heat and Payback. Literally, the game has taken a very different tack. So instead of the full-on day and night cycle that we've seen in Payback and countless other open world games, Need for Speed Heat has got a very Jekyll and Hyde divide between the two, with completely distinct day races and night races. You see, during the day there's the official Speed Hunter Showdown Championship that shuts down Palm City's streets to the general public and opens them up for sanctioned street racing, but come nighttime and all of those licensed races make way for illegal street races, with competitors having to weave their way through traffic on the streets. Certainly that's not what the city officials had in mind, but instead of shutting down the whole racket, they instead form a police task force, fill it with crooked cops, though probably not intentionally doing that either, and then set them loose to take you down. There's a hard split between the two, so you decide whether you want to head out during the day or during the night, and this means that Ghost Games have been able to focus their graphical resources in other areas, such as capturing Miami-esque rain showers in all of their glory, and at nighttime in particular, it really is glorious. Number 2. Running away from the fuzz. While crossing the finish line in a day race lets you bank your winnings straight away, at night time it's a little bit different, and you can easily find yourself caught by the cops and having all of your rep points taken away. There's nothing worse for your street cred than getting your mugshot taken and made a fool of online after all. So finish a race at night and there is no break in the action if you've got the cops on your tail. You have to keep on driving hard and try to get back to your safe house in order to keep your rep points. The cops have got all of the same kinds of tricks that you've seen in previous Need for Speed games, from throwing up blockades with conveniently placed ramps in them, to sending SWAT trucks at you head on, getting choppers up in the sky, and even using things like electronic kill switches to stall your engine for a little bit of time. You've just got to get out of there as quickly as possible and try to lie low on your way back home. Number 3. Tracks that make the world. There's 2 ways to go about open world racing game design. You either create the world first and then find the tracks within that area, or you create fun race tracks and then try to blend them together in the world. For Heat, Ghost Games have gone with the latter option, and it's helped to create a more visually entertaining world to drive through as well. The real world Miami is pretty flat, but Palm City has got plenty of crests and dips that give you that satisfying visual stimulus of coming up over a hill and then suddenly seeing the city laid out in front of you. And of course, by designing the tracks first, it should also make for more entertaining racing. Number 4. Wider roads. Another big part of this changing philosophy is that Ghost Games wants you to keep on moving, even if you make a bit of a mistake. So to help with that, the roads through Palm City tend to be quite a bit wider than in the previous games, and the corners are a bit more sweeping and less of the rigid 90-degree angles. And on top of all of this, the roadside scenery is more destructible than ever before. This includes in day races where there's been barriers put up along the side of the road. You can clatter through them, just lose a little bit of speed and carry on without having to check your car's 0 to 60 all over again. Number 5. No more tap brake to drift. Ghost Games have also ditched one of the defining characteristics of the Need for Speed handling model over the last several games. You no longer have the tap brake to drift, but something a bit more realistic that requires you to master the throttle control. In practice, it's still pretty easy to kick out the back end and drift around corners, but that might also no longer be the fastest way to get through the corners, with the good old-fashioned braking, turning into the apex and accelerating out again potentially being the quicker option. Number 6. Common sense car upgrades. Cars now have much more common sense upgrades again, instead of the speed card mechanic from Payback, and actually it's even broader than before. You can now buy any card and upgrade it in any direction, where you want to have a drifting champion or a speed demon. One much requested feature is also engine swaps, and that is now possible within Need for Speed Heat, and there's no limitations on what you can shove into what car in that regard. Number 7, even more visual customization. Payback's livery editor was absolutely fantastic, and it's here in full force once more, letting you change the colours, materials and the wraps on any part of the car. Beyond this, you can now also customize your driver avatar, picking from 12 preset characters and then dressing them up however you please. They'll then go on and feature in the in-engine cutscenes for the game's story instead of having the set characters of before. And finally, there is no more rubber banding AI, except that as Ghost Games will assert, there wasn't any rubber banding in Payback either. The difference here is that when you come up to a race, you'll have a much clearer idea of where your car stands in relation to the others. You might find yourself completely outclassed by an event, or you might find yourself racing off into the distance. But given that a lot of people thought there was rubber banding in Payback, they're trying to make it actually feel like there isn't as well this time. All in all, from what Ghost Games have shown us and told us about Need for Speed Heat, this is shaping up to be a great entry in the long-running franchise. In fact, it's the 25th anniversary, and so it's pretty appropriate that this feels like it's going to be a bit of a best-of collection of the series' many iterations. So keep your fingers crossed for when the game arrives on the 8th of November this year. That's all for this video, but head over to TheSixthAxis.com for our written hands-on preview. Before you go though, please remember to like, subscribe and share. Oh, you've already gone. Well, goodbye anyway.